Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Patriot games. And this movie came out in 1992, and it stars Harrison Ford. And I thought that I've never seen this movie before. That's why I said it in my previous video when I recommended it to myself and said, I've never seen it before. Well, turns out I have, or at least parts of it. And what I mean by that is there were a couple parts that I apparently was reminded was in this movie, and those being like just a couple things. Like one thing that Harrison Ford was like driving his car, and his car had a phone attached to it, and he was like trying to call someone. Somehow I remembered that. Don't ask how or why I remembered it, but I did. And I also remembered the parts of the rest of the scene, kind of. And I think I remember the ending, or at least the last however long of the movie. And as the movie was going along, I was kind of shocked that I have seen this movie before. Like 15 years ago, is probably when I would have watched it. But oh my god, like as the movie was going along, it was like I've seen all of this, and I couldn't remember exactly when, but I've definitely seen parts of this movie before, for sure. And that's kind of how my experience was throughout the entire movie, and that's pretty much the only entertainment that I got from it. And the rest of the movie was kind of dull, really boring, and I just couldn't get into it. And there was nothing about any of the characters that was interesting or engaging to me, and everything was just so predictable. And I was just waiting for something interesting to happen. I was waiting for like a really cool action scene, or like something very cool and memorable to like stick with me, or like something emotional to happen that also made me care, but it didn't earn it for me, unfortunately. There was nothing like that in this movie. And one other thing, I probably would have enjoyed this movie a lot more had I not rewatched A Clockwork Orange right before watching this movie, because I knew if I watched this before I rewatched A Clockwork Orange, because I rewatched it just to make sure it would make my favorite movies of all time list, which I'm currently working on. If I watched Clockwork Orange after this, then there would have been a good chance that I would completely forget about this movie. And unfortunately, that strategy didn't work out too well, because I'm forgetting this movie as I'm talking about it. But anyways, I better keep talking before I completely forget about it again. I thought the music in the movie was really cheesy and forced and never worked in any scene that it was in, and there were some really weird sound design choices in this movie, like the gun sound effects. They felt like they were from a video game. It was like it sounded so weird. Like I don't know what they were going for. And this movie isn't really an action movie, so the action scenes being kind of bad isn't too big of an issue, because there isn't a whole lot of action in the movie. There's like 3 action scenes throughout the entire movie. And they're all right at best, but unfortunately, they're kind of bogged down by the rest of the movie, because the rest of it is supposed to be a thriller, but I am just so bored by the rest of it. I could barely stand it. I could barely pay attention to it in the first hour of the movie, and this movie really dragged for me. It felt as if nothing was happening for the longest time, and when I was 30 minutes into it, I felt like I was there for an hour, and when I was like an hour into it, I felt like I was there for 2 hours. And I felt as though this movie was way too long for what it was, and it's only slightly under 2 hours, but it felt much longer than that. And comparing it to A Clockwork Orange, which I just rewatched before this, that movie flew by for me, and it felt like an hour and a half to me, honestly. And there was always something interesting and engaging in that movie, and it stuck with me immediately after I rewatched it. Whereas this movie, nothing really stuck with me. I can barely remember anything that happened. I remember the ending the most, and that's about it. And the child actor wasn't great, unfortunately. And it's not entirely her fault because the dialogue given to her is really bad, and because of that, she doesn't really have much to work with. And Harrison Ford in the movie, I thought he was fine. It's like there were some moments where it kind of stood out as like you're kind of invested, and throughout the entire movie, he's incredibly reserved and almost whispers everything he says, and I'm not really sure what they were going for there. It kind of just made the character really unbelievable to me, and I never really bought him as the hero of the movie because he never really emoted in most of the scenes in the film, and I just didn't feel any emotion or like he really cared all that much, and I was just waiting for something. And it only really happened in the action scenes, and that's about it. And that's about all I have to say about Patriot Games. It wasn't great. I tried to get into it, and it just never happened. And I've pretty much forgotten the entire movie already, and it's being replaced with A Clockwork Orange because that movie's sticking with me, whereas this is fading away very quickly. And unfortunately, I cannot recommend that you check it out. And with all that being said, I'm going to give Patriot Games a 4 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of Patriot Games, and my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for American Ultra. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.